Namaste Saraswati Deve Today we're continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 9, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version.
What? I'm sorry? What was that?
Chapter 9.
What was the title?
Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So in the last chapter, 8, Parikshit asked so many questions. It's like unlimited questions. And this chapter, Shukadeva Goswami is answering his questions, or beginning to answer his questions. And the title of the chapter is Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So this is not going to be my version of the truth, or your version of the truth, or some scientist's version of the truth, right? Or some historian's version of the truth. This is going to be giving answers to Parikshit Maharaj by citing the Lord's version. Because as we're going to be reading, continue reading in this chapter, Lord Brahma, where did he get his knowledge? He got it directly from the Lord. So he's just repeating what he heard from Krishna. So it's a wonderful chapter. Like I said last week, we could give a whole class just on the title of the chapter. You know? So today we're doing text 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Text 20, please repeat. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Veda Garbha Sikrikshaya.
Veda Garbha Sikrikshaya.
Veda Garbha Sikrikshaya.
Veda Garbha Sikrikshaya.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Dushtosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Veda Garbha Sikshikshaya.
Veda Garbha Sikshaya.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Please chant.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Tvayam Toshita Samya.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Veda Garbha Shishikshaya.
Veda Garbha Shikshaya.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam. Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayam Toshita Samya.
Veda Garbha Shikshaya.
Veda Garbha Shishikshaya.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Chiram Pratena Tapasa.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Dustosha Kuta Yoginam.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Tvayaham Toshita Samya.
Tvayam Toshita Samya.
Veda Garbha Satsaya
Vedagarbha Shikshaya
Shiramritena Tapasa
Shilamritena Tapasa
Gusto Sakuta Yogina
Tishta Sakutapyoginam
Sri Bhagavan Vacha
Sri Bhagavan
Vacha
Vayamham Tosita Samyam
Swayam Toshita Samyam
Vedagarbha Sisripsaya
Vedagarbha Shikshaya
Shiramritena Tapasa
Shilamritena Tapasa
Tustosa Kutayoginam
Tushto Sakutayoginam.
Word for word synonyms, please repeat. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha.
The all-beautiful personality of Godhead said.
The all-beautiful personality of Godhead said.
Tvayam.
Tvayam.
By you.
By you.
Aham.
Aham.
I am.
I am.
Toshita.
Toshita.
Pleased.
Pleased.
Samyak.
Samyak.
Complete.
Complete.
Vedagarbha.
Vedagarbha.
Impregnated with the Vedas.
Impregnated with the Vedas.
Sisrikshayam. For creating.
For creating.
Chiram.
Chiram.
For a long time.
For a long time.
Retaina.
Retaina.
Accumulated.
Accumulated.
Tapasa.
Tapasa.
By penance.
By penance.
Dustosha.
Dustosha.
Very hard to please.
Very hard to please.
Kutayoginam.
Kutayoginam.
For the pseudo-mystics.
For the pseudo-mystics.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The beautiful personality of Godhead addressed Lord Brahma, O Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance, with the desire for creation. Hardly am I pleased with the pseudo-mystics. Purport. There are two kinds of penance. One for sense gratification, and the other for self-realization. There are many pseudo-mystics who undergo severe penances for their own satisfaction. And there are others who undergo severe penances for the satisfaction of the senses of the Lord. For example, the penances undertaken to discover nuclear weapons will never satisfy the Lord, because such a penance is never satisfactory. By nature's own way, everyone has to meet death. And if such a process of death is accelerated by anyone's penances, there's no satisfaction for the Lord. The Lord wants every one of His parts and parcels to attain eternal life and bliss by coming home to Godhead. And the whole material creation is meant for that objective. Brahma underwent severe penances for that purpose, namely to regulate the process of creation so that the Lord might be satisfied. Therefore the Lord was very much pleased with him, and for this Brahma was impregnated with Vedic knowledge. The ultimate purpose of Vedic knowledge is to know the Lord, and not to misuse the knowledge for any other purposes. Those who do not utilize Vedic knowledge for that purpose are known as Kuta yogis, or pseudo-transcendentalists, who spoil their lives with ulterior motives. End of Srila Prabhupada's report. So the translation, again, the beautiful personality of Godhead addressed Lord Brahma, O Brahma, impregnated with the Vedas, I am very much pleased with your long accumulated penance, with the desire for creation. Hardly am I pleased with the pseudo-mystics. So, Prabhupada often makes the point that everyone is performing some kind of penance, austerity. The question is, Are we doing it for Krishna or for sense gratification? So penance and austerity, I remember when I started reading Prabhupada's books, those were like two foreign words for me. What does that mean? Penance and austerity. When I thought of the word penance, it conjured up like growing up in the Christian, Catholic tradition, like going to church and doing confession and having to do like, okay, now you have to chant 10 Hail Marys and 20 Our Fathers, or whatever it was. Like, I couldn't figure out what penance and austerity was. Nobody uses that word, austerity. It was like a foreign word. I had to look it up in the dictionary. So, by nature, by materially contaminated nature, our mind, intelligence, and our senses are always seeking gratification. In Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna inquires from Krishna, why is it that even though I know what's correct to do, I feel like I'm being pushed by a force that's compelling me to act against what I know is the right thing to do? What is that? And Krishna answers, oh, it's simply lust. It's simply lust, which is that all-devouring enemy of the soul. It covers the knowledge of the self. It steals away one's ability for self-realization. Oh, that's my enemy? Kama or lust? Well, where does he reside? I'd like to know where he resides so I can point my weapons in the right direction instead of just randomly shooting in the sky. And Krishna says, I'll tell you where they are. He's hiding right there in your intelligence, in your mind, and in your senses. So kama, or lust, is defined as that push or desire to go outward for enjoyment, satisfaction, fulfillment, to go away from Krishna for that, instead of turning around and going inward toward Krishna. So I want to enjoy separately, far away from, divorced from Krishna, rather than I want to provide enjoyment to Krishna, water the root of the tree, and then I, like a little leaf on the tree, will get satisfied. So that's what kama is, that's what lust is, that we search outward for knowledge, enjoyment, satisfaction, etc. So, what is penance and austerity then? So then Arjuna's like, okay, so there's my enemy, kama, hiding in my intelligence, mind, and senses. And Krishna instructs Arjuna, you have to control your mind. You have to control your mind. He keeps telling him that, you got to control your mind. And finally Arjuna says, look, I can't control my mind, okay? Just accept it. I can't control my mind. You're asking me to control my mind? That's like, why don't you ask somebody to stop a tsunami by catching it with a baseball glove or something? And Krishna says, no, it's not impossible. Impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary, right? You're saying it's impossible for me to control my mind. That's not true. It can be done. How? By suitable practice and detachment. So what does that mean, suitable practice and detachment? Well, the detachment part means just because some thought, some desire, some emotion comes into my mind, I don't have to ride that wave. Just let that wave go by. You don't have to get on that wave and ride it. You know, like the surfers, ooh, here comes a really good wave. Let's get our surfboard on that wave and ride it into the beach. Other waves, they just let them go by. No, it's a wimpy wave. Let that one go by. Let that one go by. Let that one. Oh, there's a good one. Let's ride that one. So the mind is constantly, with no interruption, not even while we're sleeping, does the mind take rest. When one's in deep sleep or coma, then the mind will take rest. Otherwise, in the dreaming state, the mind is constantly active, so thoughts and desires and emotions are constantly flowing through the mind. But detachment means just let them flow by, don't pay attention to them. They don't belong to me, that's not me. Just let it go by. And Krishna says earlier in the Bhagavad Gita that desires, thoughts, all these feelings and emotions, these desires are constantly entering the mind, just like the rivers, constantly, from the beginning of time to the end of time, the rivers are constantly flowing into the ocean, dumping their water into the ocean. So with trillions and trillions and trillions of gallons every minute pouring into the ocean, doesn't it seem like the ocean ought to be like really agitated and overflowing? No, you go to the ocean, it's the same height as it was 5,000 years ago, the same height it's going to be 5,000 years from now. The ocean stays forever unmoved by the constant influx of the river water. So Krishna says, like that, desires are constantly coming into the mind, and you have to just ignore them, be detached. But he who tries to grab that desire, grab that emotion and ride on it, that person will never be peaceful, they'll never be satisfied. So what is penance and austerity then? So Krishna said by detachment and proper practice, suitable practice. What is that suitable practice? Penance and austerity. So what is penance and austerity? Penance and austerity means even though my intelligence and my mind and my senses want to go for the gusto and just run after the objects of the senses, the objects of the mind and intelligence, I'm going to perform an austerity and hold those wild horses back. I'm not going to let these wild horses called the senses take me for a trip all over the place. I'm going to grab the reins of those horses and hold on tight and keep them home. We're not going anywhere. So penance and austerity means, it does not mean, many people think, ooh, penance and austerity, that means like you have to torture the self. You know, on a really, really hot day, because yogis do this. Remember we were talking about this, Prabhupada was talking about the pseudo-yogis. They do this. It's a really hot day outside. So they go outside and they build a ring, like a donut of fire, and then they sit in the middle of it. It's like, 500 degrees in there or something, whatever. Yes, I'm performing austerity, sitting amidst this circle of fire on a really hot day. Or it's a really, really cold winter day, and they go out to the lake and they crack the ice, at least up north. The ice will get really thick. You can go ice skating on it safely, because it's so thick, it can hold the body weight of so many ice skaters. You can go out on the lake and go ice skating. People drill holes in the ice, it might be 8, 10, 12 inches thick. They'll drill a hole in it and go fishing, ice fishing. So yogis will think like that. Oh, it's a freezing day. Let me break the ice on the water and go in the water naked and sit in this cold, literally freezing cold water. That's my austerity. No, that's not what austerity and penance is. That you go out of your way to torture the body. Austerity and penance means, the real definition of austerity and penance means to take the senses, which by nature want to go out there to enjoy, pull those senses, mind, and intelligence in, and make them be centered on devotional service. That's our austerity. It doesn't mean, in the month of July it's going to be 105 degrees and I'm not going to use an air conditioner. I'm just going to swelter to death in my apartment and just, let the perspiration roll down my body and practically suffocate. No, that's not what austerity means. Austerity means that we force our senses, mind, and intelligence to only do devotional service. So this is what Lord Brahma did. We've been reading that Lord Brahma performed tapa, or austerity, for one place it said 1,000 years, another place it said 100 years of the demigods. But regardless, a very long time.
It was 100 years of his lifetime.
Yeah, 100 years of his lifetimes, yeah. So 1,000 years by the demigods on one level, and 100 years on that level, Brahmaloka. Long performance of what? Meditation, not torture of the body. And what was the result? What was the result of all that austerity, that penance? What did he get out of it?
Krishna noticed him and came to him.
He attracted the Lord's attention. So much so, the Lord was so pleased with him that he spoke directly to him, the Vedic knowledge. That's what we're going to read a little later in the chapter. This chapter, verses 33 through 36, the Chatur Shloki of Bhagavatam, the 4 core verses that the Lord spoke to Brahma. And then from those 4 verses, he expanded it and spoke it to Narada, and the Narada expanded it, spoke it to Vyasadeva, and the Vyasadeva expanded it. So, in the last purport, Prabhupada said the Lord shook hands with Brahma. He was so pleased.
That's what Prabhu was telling yesterday. It was very nice, this class he gave. How he came and, the whole dance as well. It was just very nectar.
Well, I heard a sannyasi explain that now Brahma will go like this, and the Lord puts his hand over his. It's not like
Like a Western handshake. Give me 5.
Yeah, no, it's more like.
And in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it's explained that Lord Brahma wasn't just seeing Vishnu, although this chapter described Vaikuntha, but he actually saw Gopal.
That was my question.
Gopal.
Was it Krishna Gopal or was Vishnu? That was my question.
Yeah, so here it's not so evident and obvious. We'll read this chapter and feel like, okay, he met Lord Vishnu, because it's describing the opulence of the Vaikuntha planets, etc. But in Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it clearly states that he met the cowherd boy Gopal, and that they had friendly rasa, sakya type rasa exchange. So we're being asked as aspiring devotees. Prabhupada made Krishna consciousness very, very, very accessible to those of us who, for so many lifetimes, have only known one thing, and that is sense gratification. We don't know anything about satisfying the Lord's senses. So he instituted a very simple practice by which we can all perform austerity and penance. We don't have to add anything to the formula. So what is our austerity and penance? Get up early and go to Mangalarti. We're like, the mind is like, I want to sleep for 2 more hours. Nope, you're going to get up and go to Mangalarti. You're going to use your arms and legs and voice to clap and dance and sing for the Lord's pleasure. You're not going to sit in the bed and daydream or night dream. Another austerity, eat Krishna prasada. Oh, that's so austere.
It's so plain. Or it's just too spicy.
Right. So we think it's an austerity. We want to go to the store and buy whatever.
Or relatives.
Munch on other things, To abstain from intoxication. These are our austerities. So when we perform austerities in devotional service, then it's purifying. But when we perform austerities outside of devotional service, just for the sake of I'm going to go on a 40-day fast or something, that's not purifying. So one time devotees were with Prabhupada in Vrindavan when they were just getting situated there, and it was very austere. Like, probably none of us could go there and do what they did. No real bathroom facilities and so many insects, and it was just really austere. So devotees kind of complained a little bit to Prabhupada, about the situation. And Prabhupada wasn't like, oh, you poor little devotees, let me get you a cleaner place or a more comfortable place. He just turned to them and he said, don't you want to be purified? They were saying, it's so austere, we can hardly, people were leaving, devotees were leaving, because not everybody could handle it, So when they brought that little complaint to Prabhupada, he was like, don't you want to be purified? Because you're performing this austerity to help me build Krishna Balaram Mandir. So it's purifying. But we don't get that, We're thinking, oh, it's torture. Another time devotees were with Prabhupada at the Kumbh Mela, and it's the time of the year when the weather's getting cold at night. So it was very cold in the morning, you could see your breath, They were staying in tents, and when they would wake up, they would go to another area over here and bathe outside, before sunrise. And the water, and there was no heating of the water, right? So the water was like ice cold. And the servants of Prabhupada, they were with Prabhupada in another tent. Prabhupada had his own tent, and they would heat up Prabhupada's bathing water in the morning. You fill a bucket of water, and they had these little electric things that you stick in the water, and it heats up the water to the proper temperature, and then Prabhupada could bathe. Well, one morning, Prabhupada took his bath, and then he went out of the tent, and he's like, where are all the devotees? And it was like, well, they're still in their tents. They haven't been able to get out of their blankets because it's so darn cold. And the water's ice cold, so they haven't bathed yet or anything. And Prabhupada was understood. Oh, if I don't, do it myself, they won't do it. So then the next morning, he told his servant, don't heat my bathing water. So he went out to show the devotees, and he took ice cold water and did his own bath. And in other words, come on, I'm an old man with health problems, I'm doing it. You can't do it when you're in your 20s and 30s. So austerity and penance is for purification. Purification of what? Purification of the propensity of the senses, mind, and intelligence to go outward in search of enjoyment, satisfaction, etc., rather than to go inward towards Krishna. And when the mind, intelligence, and senses are purified, Atashi Krishna Namadi, Anabhavadrayam Indriyai, Sevam Mukhe Jivado Swayam Evas Paratiyada. That right now, with our unpurified mind and senses, which are always going out there, because they're always going out there, we can't understand anything about the Lord's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Nothing. No realization. But as soon as this mind and senses are purified and are going inward, then the Lord reciprocates. Swayam Sparatiyada. He, Eva Sparatiyada, He chooses to reveal Himself to that soul who utilizes, beginning with the tongue, their senses in the service of the Lord. That is our austerity. So like that, Lord Brahma performed great austerity for a long period of time, and the result was that the Lord manifested Himself personally in the form of Gopal in front of Brahma and spoke the Vedic knowledge, which now Brahma can use for his service of creation. We all have some service to do. It might not be creating a universe, but it's always some challenge involved. Where do we get the intelligence? Dadami Bhuti Yogam Tam. I give them the intelligence. But when? When will I give them the intelligence? When they worship me with love. When they perform the austerities required to grab my attention. So that's the purpose of our austerity and penance. And if we're finding ourselves not being able to quite understand how to do our service nicely or improve it or expand our service, then we should understand that we haven't earned the Lord's favor yet. So we have to keep being austere and simple with a positive attitude, not with the attitude that this is torturous. And then the Lord will reciprocate to them and do the yoga. So Lord Brahma is our acharya in this regard. So maybe we'll stop there and see if there's any discussion.
So, kind of like the Gokula class, and then also in my mind, when you're saying that in that one scripture that the Krishna that greeted him after all the austerities was Gopal, then why didn't he know who that little boy was? Why was he testing that little boy? I mean, was it just a pastime? Was he just in Yoga Maya? Or was it like he actually didn't? Because I thought it was explained that, he knows that the Supreme Lord, Vishnu and all, but perhaps he didn't know who that cowherd boy was. So Gopal actually came to him in the beginning.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Recognized him?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. He did, of course, yes, fully recognize Gopal at that point. Indeed, that chapter from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 13, which is the Brahma Brahmohana Lila, the bewilderment of Lord Brahma, many sects within the Brahma Sampradaya do not accept that chapter. Because they say there's no way that the founder of our Sampradaya could be bewildered. So it's a Leela. But at the same time, Lord Brahma is acting as the head demigod in this universe. He's acting as an acharya for all of us. And in that chapter, when he gets bewildered, why was he bewildered? Because of knowledge. He was thinking his knowledge was greater than Krishna. He just saw him as a little cowherd boy. So there was some bewilderment due to his pride of knowledge that the Supreme Lord is not a little cowherd boy. He's supposed to be this big opulent Vishnu, So we don't look at the Leelas in the Bhagavatam and find fault with, like we don't find fault with Arjuna. Oh, he was in Maya, he was like attached to his family. We understand he's being used as an instrument to give some important instruction. So similarly, Lord Brahma, he's being used as an instrument to give a lesson.
So,
And we see it all. We all see it in our own life, right? We know all of this, but we come into the temple and we see statues.
so
We don't see Gopal.
you just said that many sects within Vaishnavism don't accept that chapter, but obviously Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
So,
I wasn't talking about Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
So there is that discussion then, in that point, that Brahma was still in awe and reverence. He wasn't necessarily in the mood of, at that point, he was still in the level of awe and reverence. And this was a progression by seeing this intimate pastimes, with the cowherd boys in Gokula, that attracted him and bewildered him. Even there's a point in the story itself I mentioned yesterday that Balaram at first was confused what was going on. He's Krishna. He's wondering, Is it some kind of trick of the illusory energy, the yoga maya, or is it some mystic yoga? Why are the cows so attracted to their calves? Why are their fathers so attracted to the boys? And then he turns to Krishna, and Krishna then explains to him what has happened to Brahma. So even Balaram at that point. So there was obviously a purpose behind this. And yeah, so there is a lot of debate and discussion about I read, the book by Rupa Vilas, and there's quotes from Dr. Vinod Thakur, by Siddhanta Prabhupada, and there are some discussions back and forth about Brahma's position at that point. But the main point was that he wanted to get involved with Lord Chaitanya and not make the same offense or mistake and be a part of those intimate pastimes. So, and up to this point also, before Lord Chaitanya's appearance, and all the other acharyas, the highest they take their followers is basically awe and reverence, sometimes tinged with friendship. It's only at this time do you get this possibility. So that's, he may have, because it says that he saw the whole Goloka. He saw the whole Goloka. He didn't just see Vaikuntha. But the full understanding or the opportunity, he was still, and when he saw a cowboy offer prasadam, not prasadam, he said, "What is that you're eating?" Krishna's asking. He said, "That's something my mother made for me." And he just hands it to him without any pomp and circumstance. That Brahma was like, this is, what is going on? This is beautiful. So he wanted that. And so that's the opportunity that we've been afforded in this particular moment, to be just a few hundred years after the most munificent incarnations appeared. And so that we can also not just worship the Almighty God, but actually possibly become a blade of grass amongst his cowherd boys.
Yes, Raj Bhakti is so rare to obtain. It's so confidential that I was reading somewhere where Lord Brahma, in this Leela, when he was seeing how, like this, the Gopas would just offer Krishna something out of their own lunchbox, and Krishna would just accept it. It was all this super intimate, friendly, loving exchanges, and then the mothers and the fathers, that Lord Brahma said, "What is this? I think the Brajabasis must have Krishna spellbound by some kind of magic mantras and herbs, like they must, it's not possible to understand Raj Bhakti. As far as Lord Brahma's position at this point or that point, that's also difficult to ascertain, because even Prabhupada says different things in different places. So just yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, I was reading in the third canto where Prabhupada was explaining that Lord Brahma, even at the end of his life, and he attains Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, because he meditates on him, that he has to take birth again. He said Lord Brahma doesn't get liberated, that he has to take birth again. Why? Because he still has some desire to be like, the creator and the big shot, whatever. So Prabhupada was making that point that even the sages on the highest planetary systems, including those on Brahmaloka living with Lord Brahma, including Lord Brahma himself, even they might attain liberation, where they go to, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, that they, at the next creation, have to take birth again. But in other places we hear, Prabhupada said, when the creation is finished, Lord Brahma is liberated. So here he didn't contradict himself. He said he's liberated. He attains Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, but he has to take birth again. So it's very different, you know.
Well, there are other Lord Brahmas.
Right,
Yeah.
there's different
that's
kalpas,
also-
not different kalpas, but different lifespans of Lord Brahma.
And also, though, what's even more bewildering is the discussion that Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, I think it is, says that Haridas Thakur is a combination of three people. Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Brahma, and the son of a Muni, whose name happened to be Brahma, and he committed an offense. And I never really saw it fully resolved in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, or Bhaktisiddhanta's, or even Prabhupada's. It's just sometimes some things you just accept because, at least for me, you know, there's so much, I hate to use the word mystery, but it is. It's not, it's a realized thing. We don't academically figure it out.
Right.
It's
Then in
realized.
Bhagavad Gita 1860, 1855,
Yeah.
Krishna says that one who, you know, takes to pure devotional service, then he can enter into the mysteries of my understanding.
Right.
Not until we're fully on that platform.
Because you know, like the point I just made is that Balarama, he doesn't, at that moment, whether he's just pretending, but what Prabhupada writes is that Balaram is wondering, why are they so attracted to their calves? Why are they so attracted? And then he realizes what's going on, and he inquires, and then Krishna has to explain to him what actually happened. So, you know, there's so much. I mean, for myself, I'm so insignificant, and so tiny, and it's such a vast thing that, you know, the whole of Krishna's pastimes. And a lot of times we're talking about other days of Brahma or other kalpas, you know. But I just wanted to make a point about the ocean. As you said it, I was thinking how, you know, the waters are always going into the ocean, but it always remains the same. But the ocean has a friend in the sun. It's always evaporating its water. We don't necessarily have that. So, unless we have the holy name, when lust comes into, or desires comes into our heart.
Yeah, we can't do it ourselves.
We can't do it ourselves.
We control our mind by putting the mind on Krishna, not by artificially turning it on.
It's a very interesting class.
So we spend a lot of time glorifying Krishna as the supreme, but actually Yogamaya is the supreme. She bewilders even Krishna. So
I want to take a minute. Thank you for a very nice class here today. Doesn't Lord Brahma, when he's getting ready to create again, goes to a deep sleep for a little while before he starts?
at the end of every day, he sleeps for 12 hours, and then he wakes up, and time for me to create again.
And then another thing is that you talked about austerity and penances, and it's good to talk about that sometimes to younger devotees. It happened that I didn't meant to say it like that, but this person, we were talking to Katya the other day about these things flying in a house, it's very disturbing. Whatever that is, I don't know whether it's ants or termites or whatever. So she's really bugged by that. And then I just happened to tell some really horrifying penances that I've gone through. But I said, I'm nothing compared to her. I said, if you want to know more, you should go to her. She was shocked. She said, and then the next day she came, she said, the stuff that you guys have gone through is much worse than this little thing flying. This is nothing. I feel bad even talk about it. I didn't mean for her to feel that way. But the point is that it's good to talk about it. And what happened here, the strategies some of the devotees here performed, like her especially, is like hard to do that now. I would not do it.
I can just make one other point, is that when you were speaking about when the devotees first went to India and how difficult it was for them. Later then, there's a morning walk conversation where Prabhupada's being questioned, he's being criticized because he had built the Lotus building and it was never intended to be a temple, But he had Radha Madhava, the small Radha Madhava and Lord Chaitanya, on an altar in what was supposed to be the garage. And the devotees were living above. So the God brothers and others were criticizing, how is it that you're living above the deities? And Prabhupada explained, he said, this is not the temple. You've yet to see our temple. But wherever we live, we worship, we must worship. I built this for my disciples. They are not used to living in a straw hut or mud hut. That is vote of goodness. But they're from the West. I have to accommodate my disciples. So he made those arrangements. But then, by making one arrangement, then brought about another form of criticism. But he said, you have yet to see our temple. Unfortunately for me, listening to that at that moment, I was in the middle of a battle with the city. And they wanted to kick us out of that property. And next to the Atlanta Temple, if you're looking out this way, there was where there's townhouses, there used to be a vacant lot. So I used that argument to the city council. I said, this isn't our temple, this is where we live. But wherever we are, we worship. You've yet to see our temple. So they backed off. It was Prabhupada's mercy.
Okay, Maharaj.
When you were talking about Lord Brahma making it the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, what does that mean?
Like when the dissolution happens, at the end of Lord Brahma's day, the living entities get absorbed in the body of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. But in this purport that I was reading, it made it sound like Lord Brahma and the sages on the higher planets, that they go and personally, not just like sleep in the body of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, but personally relate with them. But Prabhupada said that still, when the next creation comes, they have to take birth again because they still have...
When is this? During the night? Or during the after the...
when Prabhupada talks about dissolution, it's difficult to see. Is he talking about at the end of the night,
partial
at the
dissolution
end of the lifetime?
Yeah,
But this is at the end of Lord Brahma's life. Well, it has to be at least.
Yeah. Like I said, it's difficult to tell, but Prabhupada didn't give any elaboration. He just said he has to take birth again. So it must be at the end of your life, because you don't take birth at the end of the night. You take birth,
Right.
Okay, Ralia, then we're done.
It seems like a process for all devotees is to do on reverence first, and then we get to a certain level, like you were saying, that the eyes are, tinged with the self of love and all that. Then I think it seems like what Krishna really desires is that personal, loving thing, like he has with the cowherd boy.
Of course. So this is our austerity, to practice on veneration. Because right now our mood is, who needs God? God's my order supplier. At best, we think God's my order supplier, or we just ignore him. So to practice even reverential type of bhakti is an austerity. Because it requires, right, deity worship, oh my gosh, you have to be completely clean, you got to be completely conscious of, are my clothes clean, am I doing this arati correctly, and am I on time? It's an austerity, because without deity worship, we'd be all over the place, So it's an austerity to practice veneration. Otherwise, we become familiar, and it's like, oh, I don't have to pay my obeisances when I come into the temple. That's all right. I walk on the altar unclean, or I poke the deity with a pen,
I get stung by you.
So that's not the goal. That's the austerity. But the goal is Raj Bhakti. So we'll stop there. Granthai Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Jai. Om Shri So Katya has termites in her kitchen?
I would say that. So much some people say it's ants, I really don't know.
But I mean,
what-
is her cabin wood or is it a
They
concrete?
come in my house too. It's
Doesn't
just-
it-
They swarm twice a year.
And
They swarm.
they like that light. They
Yeah.
like, when they see lights, they'll just go for that. So if you have a screen and it's not quite airtight or whatever, they can get in, that's what happens.
And it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to nest there,
Yeah.
but they'll swarm.
Uh-huh.
They come around, but that, you know, that twice a year, they're gonna be coming at that point, and you have to be careful then to see if you see any evidence that they, because you have any wood, they're gonna want something.
Even inside.
Yeah, even if it's a little, especially if it's a little damp. But there's also carpenter ants, there's all kinds of things. There's so many.
I'm trying to get a terminator, maybe he can do something outside, we don't know.
I asked those guys to come once, just recently, to check my house for termites, because I was worried about those
Yeah.
bugs. And he goes, no, from what I can see, you don't have them.
Yeah,
So,
that's
I
what it
think,
is.
you know, because I live in the woods, they could be like out in some tree. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean they're
Yeah.
That's what, yeah.
I just saw them in my house one day after she talked about it in the bathroom, just for one day. And then I just saw them and then they disappeared. And then I don't know how they came and how they left.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I could see what.
You can find, there'll be evidence of it. You'll see sawdust. After a while, you'll know.
Oh, I didn't see any of that. It was just a.
Is her cabin wood
Like a
or
puzzle.
concrete?
We'll see. We'll get the terminator there, but I think it freaks out, you know, there was a lot of
They
it.
freak me out.
Yeah, when Carol was there, she was
But
there.
she
having-
has wood in it.
and she really,
Your furniture or something.
Could do a lot.
that's no therapy.
You know, and we make the windowsills.
Yeah.
So Mahalakshmi says that you go out to the garden, just like if you were going out to shoot books.